So today some more drama unfolded regarding Vivziepop. This time it involves a previous staff member. Before I start, I have two other videos discussing the drama. Those two videos will be linked below, but for a brief summary, Vivziepop has been receiving harassment due to delays in both shows. Legal issues have also contributed to these problems. On June 6th, Erin Frost, who is an ex-team member of Helluva Boss and Spindlehorse, spoke out on the toxic work environment and problems working under Vivzi. She mentioned how members had to pull all-nighters, there was little structuring with deadlines, toxic behaviour, and other cartoons were bashed regularly. Today, this Tumblr post was shared around and it led to a Twitter shitstorm. I'm going to read out everything and give my thoughts after. I'd also like to remind everyone that these are anecdotal allegations with no screenshots or proof, so it's innocent until proven guilty. Don't send harassment to Vivzi, Erin, or anyone that is mentioned. So all of this stems from the Tumblr of an ex-Helluva Boss member known as Erin Frost. The Tumblr layout is complete garbage, however I will try my best to compile everything Erin has said about Vivzi. Erin Frost started by saying, "Hey, been pretty quiet for a while because working on Helluva Boss fucked my mental health so badly I've given up on animation entirely and haven't been able to draw for the last year or so since I quit. Vivian Medrano is an awful human being." This happened on June 6th. A bunch of Tumblr users came out in support of Erin Frost, which led to Erin making a follow-up post. Erin said, "I'm honestly touched to see so many supportive messages. For a long time I never spoke up because I was afraid of what it would do to my career prospects. But the longer my burnout lasted, the more it was clear that I just didn't have a future in animation. Not if it meant overworking myself to the breaking point. Maybe I'll get back to working on indie projects one day, but Spindlehorse was just such a toxic experience. I'm not sure that it will anytime soon. I struggle even to draw things for myself. It's gonna be a while before I'm ready to try and monetize something I'm passionate about by selling my creative labor to others." It's not just that Viv demanded unreasonably tight deadlines, when she even gave us deadlines, but she also demanded our loyalty as employees. We weren't allowed to speak positively about other shows, especially not other indie projects. We weren't really allowed to work on other indie projects either, it was frowned upon. I remember one time Viv got us all in a Discord group call and streamed a crossover episode of Villainous and another CNN show. She encouraged everyone to make fun of it and tear apart every little flaw. She would also speak poorly of other creators, indie or otherwise. I distinctly remember her mentioning that it was supposedly utter hell to work with Dana Terrace of the Owl House. It was just deeply toxic all around, not just the way the animation and design work was done, that being highly disorganized and unprofessional, but also the culture. When I first joined the studio, it felt like Viv treated me as an equal, and I'm sure it felt like that way for a lot of us, but gradually a hierarchy came into place. Viv had her favourites, the people who flattered her and rarely or ever showed interest in anything that wasn't Has-Been or Helluva Boss, and her executives of sorts, her close friends and favourites. There's Sam Miller, who I believe, or at least was, credited as background design lead or something to that effect, and is essentially Viv's Gal Friday. She was very often considered to be the de facto leader in Viv's absence. She was pretty nice in the beginning, but as time went on, she became more and more rude and abrasive towards artists. It was actually an interaction with Sam Miller that finally caused me to quit. Viv had made herself pretty untouchable, and we were meant to go through Sam, at least for background artists, if we had a question for Viv. I'm not going to go into detail on that last interaction here, but it was Sam's treatment that affected most of us who had issues on the project. We barely interacted with Vivian anymore. As far as we were aware, she was spending more and more time rubbing elbows with the increasingly expensive voice talent. That's likely where most of the budget goes. Merchandising and paying for name brand voice talent like Norman Reedus. Viv herself insisted she wanted the role of Fizzarelli to go to Weird Al, but Yankovic's agent rejected the offer on his behalf. I can't imagine he comes cheap. From what I figure, once the first episode of Helluva went live and Viv insisted on uploading a new episode every 1 to 2 months, things got progressively worse. She had little to no sympathy for those of us who needed day jobs to support ourselves. She wanted us to have the turnout of a brick and mortar studio with none of the organisation, professionalism or employee benefits. I was working between 30 and 40 hour weeks at Starbucks because I had bills and loans to pay. I once pulled an all-nighter to try and meet a deadline which was only given out when I asked for one, and which turned out to be less than a week away. I stayed up all night to meet the deadline and then went immediately to my 8-hour shift at Starbucks. The lack of appreciation was so crushing. That's how I describe working for Viv, crushing. I looked up to her. That's why I applied to the show. I was one of the people who defended her when people tried to call her toxic, and then the reality of it was that Viv uses the people who admire her to her advantage. It's why she hires fans. She knows we're desperate for her approval, so she knows she can get away with pretty much whatever she wants. After I left Spindlehorse, I tried salvaging my career, but I was just too exhausted. I'm still feeling burnt out, and at times it can feel like I might never get my art back. I know I will, but as someone who struggled with mental illness even before working on Helluva, it just kind of wrecked me to have finally made it stopped with my animation career, only for it to abruptly blow up in my face because of someone I had looked up to. I know I'm not the only one who left feeling this way. Another friend of mine struggled to get work after leaving Spindle because Viv allegedly threatened other creators not to hire her artists. I can't verify this myself, so you're just gonna have to decide for yourself if you believe that one. Personally, I do. While speaking about Viv with the producer of other indie works, and who now works for Bento Box, describing a time she met Viv at a convention, as she recalls it, Viv seemed to find the idea of investing in her artists and their careers pointless and laughable. I genuinely feel used, and that we were all used. It's been over a year since I quit, so I don't know if things have changed or improved. I highly doubt it though. Another Tumblr user replied to this, and Erin responded by saying, "To be honest, I'm just too exhausted. I'm not looking to get involved in some crusade to take Viv down, nor do I want to try and drag my fellow ex-employees. I'm still friends with a few, into a mudslinging fight. I just don't have the time or energy for that. If others want to come forward, I encourage them to, but I also don't blame anyone for wanting to stay out of it and not jeopardize their livelihoods. I've given up on my animation career. That's really the only reason I came forward. I needed to move on, and I couldn't do that until I felt I'd been heard." Erin replied to another fan saying, "Thank you. People have actually been a lot more supportive than I was expecting. I kind of figured this would just be mostly ignored as another drop in the bucket of Vivziepop detractors, because I do know for a fact that there are plenty of bad faith takes in her out there. It's ultimately up to the people who see this whether they choose to believe me or not, and if you don't believe me, that's fair. As far as the situation stands, this is just my word against everyone else's. I encourage other artists who feel they've been mistreated by Viv to come out, but I also understand if they choose not to get involved." One Tumblr user responded to Erin and asked her for evidence of her claims. Erin responded by saying, "I'm in talks with some other ex-employees currently. I'm going to withhold making many more comments or updates until I've got a better idea of how they want to proceed. We might be getting more statements from ex-employees, but I'm not going to promise them just yet. I decided to come forward pretty spontaneously the other night because I've been having a hard time lately, and I guess this was just weighing on my mind. I haven't been following Viv or her projects and haven't really interacted with social media over the last year until last night. Anything that might seem significant about the timing is sheer coincidence." That's everything Erin Frost said about it. If you've seen my other two videos, I showed some tweets Vivziepop made leading up to June 6th. Erin Frost's statements came out at the same time, so we know that it's one of the contributing factors to Vivzi's break from social media. I was not aware of this drama until it exploded on Twitter today. One user posted it to the Helluva Boss subreddit, and the moderators took the post down. On Twitter, however, it has gained a lot of traction. There's numerous tweets and threads discussing the drama. The majority of them are very critical of Vivzi and the team. The tweets range from people calling out Vivzi to users saying if you watch either Hazbin Hotel or Helluva Boss, you should unfollow them. One more thread documented some responses of ex-Hazbin Hotel and Helluva Boss crew members who came forward after the Twitter threads were made. In this image from 2021, we can see Twitter users say they regret agreeing to do a voice for Hazbin Hotel because they weren't paid or treated well, and have received messages from fans wondering about release dates. Another artist replied saying how them and their girlfriend were treated bad while working on Hazbin Hotel, however they didn't speak out due to mob mentality. Another artist replied to a Twitter thread saying, "I've kept my mouth shut about this subject because even the slightest mention of anything negative about her opens the floodgates. Her own crew has ran into my DMs telling me to stay quiet nearly seconds after I stated I had a bad experience. I didn't even mention her by name." Lastly, one more artist quote retweeted a thread by saying that, "I remember there were being massive amounts of shit talking going on in the server that was supposed to be a professional work environment. It gave me severe anxiety, but I just tried to keep my head down and diligently do my work." They also mentioned how they were harassed by an HR member called Sam, who may be the same one that was mentioned in the earlier threads. As for my thoughts on the situation, I think it's a pretty sad situation. However, we shouldn't dogpile anyone. We have to take into consideration that there isn't much evidence like screenshots to back up these claims. Like one commenter said, more evidence is needed before we can come to a final decision. The other ex-workers coming out after the threads gained traction on Twitter perhaps shows that more may come out in the future. This drama could reignite again in the coming weeks, so if anything happens, I'll be sure to keep you guys updated on everything. Like a couple users have said, we need to remember that people are innocent until proven guilty. Let me know your thoughts down below, and thanks for watching.